Welcome to TERC Tech Talks with your hosts, Zach, Elise, and Ken. Today we explore how neurodiverse learners and their teachers might use AI tools to support their learning. We will look at Diffit for teachers and Goblin Tools with our special guest, Dr. Jodi Asbell-Clarke.
Diffit is a tool that's created to do basically what we just did, without the context probably. But, well, no, I guess with the context. So what are you teaching? So we can go and say third grade fractions. Oh, and here it is that you can have drop down boxes. Yeah, third grade.
It's like we can pick standards if we have a pro account, which I don't. So
Okay.
we'll just leave it.
Okay.
So
But that's the agent would turn on with that select box.
And then I was confused where it says English. I guess that's the language that it's
yeah, as opposed to
the subject or something.
But I suppose if you had multilingual class, that could be helpful if you wanted to spit out.
Do you want to add anything more to
this? Then you generate resources.
Okay.
It says you can adapt texts, but I'm
pretty sure you generate. Yeah, I think this is going to give us. Yeah. So it gives you
the circles also pizza.
Yeah, pizzas are everywhere with fractions. Yeah. So here it gives us the lesson, and you can show the whole lesson just to show it's there. And so it's a little more formalized than what the ChatGPT thing. It's a little more produced, I would say.
They created worksheets for us.
Yeah, multiple choice questions. We got that, I
edit it if I wanted to.
Yeah. And teachers that just want to go through the motions would love this, right? It gives them everything that they think they need.
And it's incorporating short writing prompts in third grade.
Right. And the think, pair, share, which is, pedagogical. I'm not dissing any of these models. They're just, I don't find this very creative.
Sure. Yeah.
Draw and explain. I think for a brand new teacher who had never taught this before, I think this could be really useful. To just give a structure that they could then modify and do things with. I think it might be useful, but I think once you've used a bunch of teaching tools, this is going to look very, I don't know what the word is. But what it does allow you to do, if you see those things up on the nav bar, you can change activity, or no, excuse me, can we go back up to the top? Here, reading length, you can change reading length, and so you can modify it for the type. And I think there's another one that's reading level, but there's reading length. Yeah, modify reading. Here's how you can modify the reading level. And one thing I did think that was interesting is you could build in your own vocabulary words and have that make sure that so we could do something like, I don't know how to apply it to this lesson, but I was thinking that you could do something like computational thinking, which might not come up, or problem decomposition or something, things that might not come up in other lessons. I don't know that that's going to apply to this one. So, but we could do something like proportion or ratio, to some word that we wanted to teach along with fractions, ratio.
Or unit fraction. They probably didn't have it.
Okay.
So did take the computational thinking, but I bet
it's not a very...
Yeah, that's not a good use of the term computational.
So we're using computational thinking to divide it equally.
But equally, no, yes. So that shows another reason why this isn't, not...
Using computational thinking helps us solve problems in everyday life. It's just
It's very generic.
You told me to throw computational thinking in there. I saw
That's right. That's right. But I do the right ratio one's okay. The ratio of pepperoni to mushroom, for example, could be 1 to 1 if we, so that showing the ratio in the same context as the fraction could be useful. And to be fair, I did say computational thinking. I didn't know how it was going to fit. That was a real stretch to give the tool.
But it could have used like for every pepperoni we put on them, we're going to put 1 mushroom so that.
Right. We can do we can build an algorithm or something like that. Yeah.
Or the tool could tell you like this might not be the best fit for the lesson. The tool would never say,
that would have been a better, yeah, totally.
It'd be like, can you include long division? And it would do it instead of saying like, is that the best idea?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So, and then the other thing that you can change is the activity itself. So you can go and, whether it's reading or read and take notes, or there's different sort of, this is almost reminds me of in PowerPoint when you can choose your design, it's like your layout and what ancillaries you want along with it. So that's what I've seen as sort of what the commercial field thinks about in differentiation. And I mean, I could see uses for it, but it would, if you knew what you were doing, it wouldn't be that helpful. And if you don't know what you're doing, it's scary because it could lead you astray. So it doesn't really fit either end for me.
Yeah.
I have one more tool I'd like to show you that's a little different than all this, called Goblin Tools.
Okay.
And this is much more of this is not for teachers as much as I also do executive function coaching with learners, and mostly high school and university learners who know what they want to get done. They have their task. They have a syllabus for their class. They just need to get through their class and figure out how to organize that. So this is Goblin Tools is designed for neurodiversity, and it does a lot of the skills that we do in our executive coaching kind of thing. So right now we're in the to-do list. Can you click back up to Goblin Tools? I think on right. So there's several different tools. This to-do list does what we call problem decomposition. It takes a task and it breaks it down into subtasks. Does it quite well. We can show it. There's a formalizer where you can change your writing for a different audience, either more or less formal, usually more formal. This is a challenge for some neurodivergent learners who really understand concepts but aren't very good at expressing them in the way that the world expects them to express them. It reads a text and gives emotional, whether that we can play with that one. That's pretty fun. A professors and explain anything. That's what you'd expect. It just it's an answer. And consult is help me decide. The estimator, it does a reasonably good job. And time blindness is something that's very common amongst a lot of particularly ADHD learners, where it's just like I'm going to say an inability, just because I don't have, the idea that we go, oh yeah, that task, I'll probably take me 20 minutes. I've done it before and I have 20 minutes and I have to be somewhere in 25 minutes. So I can fit that in. That is just a skill that is very difficult for a lot of people. And so this estimator, along with the breakdown tools, helps a lot with that. The compiler, as we were talking earlier, it takes a brain dump and turns it into a task list. It's very useful, and I wanted to show it, but I didn't have any brain dump that I felt like showing on a webinar of all my things. But I'm thinking in particular of notes that we take when we're trying to collaborate and think of proposal ideas and or a project idea when a whole bunch of us have gotten together and have a whole bunch of ideas and we throw them into a Google Doc or something. Taking that and putting it into the compiler could come out with some nice clear steps. They have a recipe from ingredients. I don't know. I think that may have been the origin of this tool, the Goblin tool, and they built out from there. And so they left it in there. Anyway, I have not played too much with the teaching tools yet. I think that's more beta in beta. It may be thing, but we can go look at what's there. But I'm in. I see. Okay.
I could make an
Yeah.
account.
So, but if you want to, I don't know if you want to spend our time going back and doing the breaking down tasks and seeing the estimators and seeing what that does, or whether we want to look more at the teacher stuff. It's up to you. But what I was doing with it was I started with a new project because this was actually a project that came out of my work with, I would have loved to have this when I was in junior high. Can we go back to the Goblin tools?
Yeah.
And go to the breakdown, the magic to do. And I had a kid who was very on the margins. In fact, 6 or 7 years later, I'm pretty sure he's in prison, unfortunately. But the only way he was going to connect to school was if he could start a skateboard repair shop. And so we actually found a space across the street from the school in a church hall and that had a little thing, and we got him, he had everything lined up to start a skateboard repair shop as his project. And so I had to guide him on how do you do this. So go ahead and put that of build a skateboard repair shop. And then the little that yes.
So now that's the break
So
it
that's
down.
like a wand. Is that thing a wand? Is that
It's
I can't
something.
remember.
It's a magic to do, so probably. But the things that they came up with were almost identical to the things that he had to do. And it broke it up really easily. And each one of these, you can then ask for a subtask list. And you could break it down as far as you want to keep going into tasks. And I'm surprised with how versatile the projects you can put in here are. So we could put that math lesson in. Oh, and each of these you can do an estimated. I think if you go next to the wand, yeah, you can estimate the time.
Okay,
You
30
can
minutes to
edit
create a pricing structure. I'm going to break that task down more.
Yeah. And for each of those, you can estimate the time, you can edit it. And then you can
You can't do
start
it in
keeping
half an
this.
hour.
Pardon me?
But it says 30 minutes. Does that mean that you could do this in 30 minutes? Because even the very first task would take me probably at least half an hour.
Yeah, so that's interesting whether what is this?
Estimate.
Oh.
Says that one would
Okay,
take.
so yeah, so maybe it's not doing the compilation very well. And it,
Or
you know,
is
it also
saying-
depends on the detail at which you want to do these things, right?
Right.
Right.
Or is it saying if you had half an hour, here's what you could, I don't know.
No, I think it's saying that you should allot this much time for it. And I do agree that creating the pricing structure is 30 minutes seems small. Although you can edit that too. So you can now go through there and go,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's going to take me 2 hours.
right. And then this also becomes your checklist, right? So now you can start tracking things, and with a premium membership, I'm not sure it's with ours, you can get like prompts and it can organize it in a bunch of different ways for you and stuff like that. So now because here's why I don't use this with my clients is because nobody wants another tool. So I have somewhat replicated this in Google Docs, although it doesn't have the LLM aspect, it doesn't have the generative aspect. When I work with a client, I will we'll take their syllabi and we load their syllabi in here and we break down assignments and exams and things like that into what they need to review, and the projects we break out into tasks, and we do all this stuff, but it's in Google Docs so that we're sharing it and it's always there and they can update it at any time. So there's always this cost of, do you want it to be convenient and in the same place as everything else? My clients generally hire me because they are already overloaded with everything they have to do. And so giving them another tool is not a solution. So
I asked ChatGPT, I said, I want to open a skateboard repair shop. What steps do I need to take? And it put it into this sort of an interesting, this is much more step-by-step. And it said, here are the 3 phases. You do the planning, you do the setup, and then you do the launch. But I mean, I don't know how many of the steps. It's fewer steps.
So educationally, I think part of me goes, wow, that's so much better because it gives the metacognition, the ability for metacognition for us to know where we are in the process and all that. And then I think about the kid that wanted to do that. He needed this checklist.
Yeah.
So I think both. I think they both add value. I would present that big picture to them and I would keep that in their sort of portfolio as a navigational aid. And then I would use the checklist as a sort of accountability and progress monitor.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about a big question I have with all this, which is my love of project-based learning and of independent learning, particularly for neurodivergent learners, is because it allows me or the teacher to catch learning as it happens. It avoids the need for external assessment, which is so bad for so many reasons. So if you can assess learning while the student is thriving in their element, doing what they're doing and knocking off the standards-based learning the way you want them to, isn't that a much better way of assessment? So I'm trying to figure out what that looks like here. Does AI either enhance or deny that opportunity?
The big question.
I can argue for enhance by saying it frees up the teacher and provides the teacher with structures and supports that then they can go in and do that. If this is left as a teaching tool, once it becomes a student tool, it's very convenient and possibly even necessary to hand over that monitoring responsibility to the AI. And that worries me, particularly given the bias of AI that's exclusive of many of the learners that don't. They often get marginalized.
Or the bias of the kinds of people that want to increase efficiency.
I guess that's what I meant. The people behind that are driving the AI towards certain ways. And with whom they're training models and all that kind of stuff.
Like, Elise, could you imagine, not that you would, but like, if you're like, oh, if I could use these AI tools, now I can be teaching whatever, 4 kids at once instead of the one-on-one.
No, not really, because it's so relational teaching that the idea that I would split my time and not be in front of them for most of it the trade-off doesn't really make sense. Yeah. I could see it for helping me, like if I had a student who's really into baseball and I don't know that much about baseball and I don't want to spend my evenings learning about it, I could see this helping me like create context that were engaging for students. but not taking over the monitoring aspect.
I'm remembering the math class I was in last year, and it was a seventh grade math class, and she had on the table almost every lesson. She was at the board teaching for a little while, but almost all the project problem solving part of the class. She had about six different copies. They were worksheets, but they were six different worksheets with different representations and different, one would have been a word problem, one would have been a graphical thing, one would have been a, plug and chug arithmetic, those kinds of things. And kids were just allowed to take the ones that worked for them and sometimes multiple. And so I'm just thinking in that kind of generating, okay, we're doing fractions today. Here's the salamander version, here's the baseball version, here's and so what the kid's doing. So I'm imagining a class where a teacher circulates more than stands in front. That is my model of teaching. But but I can imagine, the presentation for 10, 15 minutes presentation of the lesson, and then the problem solving is contextualized all around. But I have, not 30 different versions. Maybe there's 8 different versions that are in the classroom that they choose from. And I know that what the questions they're asking, so I can, the content's all the same. It's just the application. And I should say the pedagogical content knowledge is all the same. It's just,
Yeah, I
Could be
keep
the
thinking,
representation
so
or like kind of the wrapper of context around it would be what's different.
yeah, yeah.
like if all the kids were working in an online environment so that the AI in the background could allow us to saying like this third of the classroom all have the same misconception, or like, the way that they're solving these problems or the way that they're getting incorrect answers, they're confused with the whatever. In our case, they're confusing the denominator with the numerator or something like that. You do have to whatever. That's not a totally hard concept to fix, probably. But I'm kind of wondering these efficiencies. So if you can just get that through the AI, then can you use the time to build the personal relationships with the kids, or do you just get more kids put into your classroom because you can identify the third of the class without having to walk around? So now I can give you 45 kids instead of 30 in your classroom because the AI is letting you oversee the work of that many kids, right? Like that's the kind of thing that
Now,
worries me.
here's what it's not more kids, they're different kids. I think what this addresses is the increasing cognitive diversity in the classroom. And that I pretty sure it's I mean, I know the literature I'm in Canada, not in the US, so I don't know the literature as well in the US. I know in Canada, because there's a strike in Alberta right now exactly on this issue, that what they call the complexity of the classroom, the diverse needs of the kids in the classroom is rapidly increasing. And and the numbers stay the same. So that's what this is. It's not about how many, but it's about how many different kids you can engage. And whether it works or not is yet to be seen. I mean, whether if you give every kid the fraction problem in their own, um, you know, interest area, if you could do it 30 times and, do it really well, all our learning science literature says, of course that would work. Of course would work better. What is success? But of course, if you give them something that motivates their learning and engages their emotion, then that's going to be an improvement factor.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my fear, is even if we could do it better, whoever the powers that be could be like, well, we're doing it kind of okay right now. So what we could do is reduce the cost by 75%.
But who's saying we're doing it okay right now?
Well, I live in a state where
Oh, okay.
the funding, like the funding has not been increased, for example. So
Right. No, that part, but yeah.
right, so on the
Um,
policy level, it's sort of like, well, you're kind of saying that it's fine as it is, right?
yeah, I guess,
Not
okay,
investing.
implicitly, right. Or that you don't care that it's not.
Right. Or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah,
or the answer is that they should be going to private schools or
that's right.
whatever.
Yeah, that's not our problem.
It's time for Turk Tech Talk's top 3 takeaways.
My other fear with this is it's back to that, there's the generative part that produces materials. And I think that part's pretty okay. There's a spectrum of how creative it is, Diffit versus what it can do and stuff. But I think the generative stuff is helpful. It's not, doesn't replace. You even more need the relationship. But it's helpful. The underneath analysis part and the part you were just saying of, okay, so they've missed the numerator, swapped the numerator and denominator 10 times. What do we do with that and how do we teach it next? That is so dependent on good theory of both assessment and instruction. And that's what we at TERC do really, really well in other agencies. And I don't know that that always gets into, well, I know it doesn't always get into the tools that actually teachers are going to end up using. And so that's what worries me. And I think that's why we at TERC are trying to figure out how to put our knowledge into these new tools in ways that both increase efficiency of teaching and help teachers, but don't lose that learning, that really good grounding in learning science that has to be there.
Elise, do you have another takeaway from today?
I would say it just sounds like it can be a good jumping off point, but not something that teachers should be just taking wholesale and using in their classrooms. Maybe a good partner for idea generation or thinking about context, but so much of teaching is relational and really knowing your students, and this can't replace that.
Totally. Totally.
And I totally agree with you, Jodi, we have a professional teaching core, and we should let them be professional teachers and expect them, obviously, to be professional teachers. And these tools, they can't just use them as is. Nobody should be using them at first draft, right? Like, and professionals don't.
Mhm.
So lots of people think like, oh, it's fine. We'll just we could just put kids in front of the computer. It'll be fine. Like,
And on the flip side, lots of people think that you can create one lesson and give it to a class of 30 kids and it's going to work. And that's also a fallacy. So somewhere, maybe there's a path in there.
there's so many fallacies. More fallacies than truths, I think. The fallacies are easy though. That's the danger of them, right? Like, oh, if just, I'm like, no, there's no just.
Well, we've been doing that for 150, or however, since the Industrial Revolution, however long that's been, is, one size fits all education. That is what we all grew up on. And now I think everybody realizes that's not working, but nobody, not knowing. It is very hard to get there. And tools like AI may help us, but they're not a magic bullet.